Hello, God bless you, and welcome to episode 17 of Unshackled Life Q&A. My name is Dalen Woodard, and I am a Bible teacher and assistant pastor at Nacogdoches Christian Fellowship and founder of Unshackled Life Ministries in Nacogdoches, Texas. These Q&As cover questions about God, the Bible, and theology, and we will examine the questions from a biblical perspective and using biblical thinking, meaning approaching the question from a biblical worldview and using the text in context with the passage where it is found, as well as keeping it in context and agreement with the entirety of Scripture. At the end of the Q&A, I will give you ways to ask your own questions for future episodes. Also, I would like to thank the person who asked the question we will be covering today. So let's get to it. Question: why did the disciples think Jesus walking on the water was a spirit, but thought Peter released from prison was an angel? The disciples were unable to believe what was really happening at first in both situations because both events were supernatural and beyond what could be fathomed. One, a man walking on water, and the other, a man walking out of a Roman prison in the middle of the night. But there is a difference between a ghost and an angel. So why didn't the disciples think the same thing about both occurrences, either that both were ghosts or that both were angels? Why the different wrong assumptions? The first reason is that they were reacting to two totally different circumstances. The first one I'll look at is the second chronologically, the freeing of Peter. This event can be found in Acts 12. The disciples were afraid because the disciple James had been executed. They were afraid that the same would happen to Peter now that he had been arrested, which is why they gathered together to pray for him. But this mention of the death of James causes some confusion. It is because of this, I believe, that many believe that the attendees of the prayer meeting for Peter thought he had been killed when the girl told them Peter was outside. But that wasn't what they thought. They thought it was Peter's angel, not Peter's ghost. Because of the way the belief in angels has evolved, it is easy to read this as they thought Peter had died. But the Jews didn't believe a person became an angel when they died. They did believe in guardian angels, though. The Jews believed that each person had a guardian angel. Many believe that Jesus confirms this belief in Matthew 18:10. See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you that in heaven their angels always see the face of my Father who is in heaven. The indication seems more to be that they believed that Peter's guardian angel was similar in appearance to Peter or had taken on his appearance in order to deliver a message regarding the imprisoned disciple. Jesus walking on the water was an entirely different situation. The event is recorded by Matthew and Mark, and both use the same word, phantasma, which means apparition or appearance of something supernatural, to describe what the disciples believed they were seeing. Jesus had experienced opposition and even threats on his life already and right before the time of this encounter. And it isn't difficult to think that the disciples feared he would come to harm when they left him alone to cross the sea without him. If they feared for him, it is reasonable to think that when they saw him walking on the water, they thought he had been killed and that they were seeing his spirit walking toward them. That might very well be the case, and I most certainly wouldn't argue over this because the text doesn't give us any more information than that they were afraid and believed Jesus was a phantasma. If this is the correct assumption, then the simple answer to the question is that they didn't think Peter had been killed, but was still incarcerated, and so believed his messenger came to them. But they did fear Jesus had been killed, and thought they saw his ghost. That said, I think there may be an even better biblical answer to what the disciples believed about Jesus walking on the water. The reason I believe that this might be a better explanation is twofold. First, we are given no indication that the disciples were superstitious. And second, there is another way to look at phantasma. As mentioned previously, phantasma can also mean a supernatural appearance. Phantasma is the noun form. of this Greek word. The verb form is phantazo, and it is only used once in Scripture. It's found in Hebrews 12, verses 18 through 21. For you have not come to what may be touched, a blazing fire and darkness and gloom and a tempest and the sound of a trumpet and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that no further messages be spoken to them, for they could not endure the order that was given, if even a beast touches the mountain, it shall be stoned. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight, phantazo, that Moses said, I tremble with fear. There are many instances in the Old Testament where it is clear that to have God show up caused fear. This example with Moses and also Gideon's visitation and others have people basically saying, I'm afraid I'm going to die because I'm seeing some manifestation of God. Since this word phantasma is only used in the two recordings of Jesus walking on the water, and its root word, phantazo, is only used once to describe the sight of God that made Moses tremble, I believe it is reasonable to assume that the word choice was purposeful and that the disciples on the sea believed they were being supernaturally visited by God, which produced the same kind of fear in them that it gave the people in the Old Testament. I think this is the better understanding of the disciples' fear, especially when one takes into account that among those who believe in ghosts in both ancient and present times, one commonly held belief is that the ghosts or spirits of human beings can't cross water. Since this was a commonly held belief among those who thought people turned to ghosts upon death, even if the disciples did superstitiously believe in ghosts and believed that Jesus had been killed and became a ghost, it is unlikely that seeing an apparition on the water would make them think human ghost. Something I appreciate about this interpretation is that the presence of God caused fear throughout the Old Testament. An awareness of God always brought with it an awareness and understanding of being unworthy of His presence and deserving of death. If the second interpretation is held, then the disciples were feeling much the same way that prophets of old felt when confronted with the presence of God. But Jesus didn't say, hey, don't be afraid because you're not seeing God. His response of, it is I, do not be afraid, reminds us that we don't have to fear the presence of God, because in His great love for us and mercy toward us, God made Himself a part of the human experience and story in order to bring peace between us and Him, and make us able to rest in and enjoy the presence of God without fear of judgment. All right, thank you for listening. I hope the answer to today's question helped you in some way. If you have a question about God, the Bible, or theology, you can email your question to daylynwoodard@minister.com. That's DALYNWOODARD@minister.com. Or go to the Unshackled Life Ministries Facebook page and ask there, or through DM. Find me, Dalen Woodard, on Twitter and ask there, or reply to this video on YouTube. May the Lord bless you and keep you and give you an ever-deepening hunger for His Word. Help us spread the word by sharing, commenting, and clicking that like button. Keep up to date with the Q&As by subscribing to this channel. And remember, when you fix your thoughts on God and build your thinking on the foundation of His truth, God fixes your thoughts.